Please excuse my voice. I am getting over a cold, so if I sound like a raspy, nasally mess, I apologize. Today we're building in Evergreen Harbor, and we're going to be making some starter homes. They're townhouses that are also lofted, so they do have a very industrial feel to them. I was trying to take into account the plot of this expansion pack, having it be like a build that could potentially be in a very industrial area, but also in a newly revived area. And so I made it really modern, like a new development. I've been playing in other people's save files, and the one complaint that I have when I'm in a lot of save files is that there aren't enough starter homes that are like move-in ready that don't already have like furniture in them. So I wanted to create a build where I could move in a new sim and then decorate the house the way I wanted. My idea for this build is that some developers have come in to Evergreen Harbor, noticed that it's like on the cusp of this new revitalization, and they're trying to take advantage of cheaper land prices and cheaper cost of construction in the area, since it is a pretty undesirable area at this point, aka gentrification. I like this area specifically for this kind of storyline because it's in an area that I imagine would have been just a completely empty lot. So it would have been prime real estate to build on for these types of townhouses. And the backyard is facing, well, I mean, it's more of like a back patio. It's facing the port, and then the front door is facing this road that also has some like train tracks and mountain range in front of it. So I feel like it's a really beautiful place to build a house in, and I would totally live here. I mean, the smog is pretty bad, but worth it. I did do a lot of back and forth on getting this layout right. I kept on changing the layout of the rooms in the front of the house because I was like, I know I want to have a lofted bedroom kind of area up top. I want to have enough space for that, so then the rooms below have to be wide enough. But then I had this like awkward hallway moment, and I was like, well, I could just turn that into like a den kind of room that's not necessarily big enough to be an actual bedroom, but you can use it for whatever hobbies that your sim has, or if like your sim would work from home, that would be a good kind of office area to have. And that brings me back to the thought of like the purpose of this build, because it would work so well if you're doing the gameplay that comes with this pack. I can totally imagine a civil designer sim moving to this newly constructed home, trying to build a life for themselves, and also helping revitalize Evergreen Harbor. Like, oh my god, that I want to play this right now. When I was building this, I was just imagining like the lifestyle that someone would have while living here, being able to walk home from work, or even just like drive home. Obviously, like it's not really a walkable area, but there's walking paths that make it really beautiful and scenic. Let me just clarify that when I say walkable area, I just mean like a walkable like 5-minute city type of area, not like that this isn't walkable. Obviously there's like walking paths and piers and stuff that you can walk on, just nothing interactive. Speaking of interactive, oh my god, I wish that these worlds had more interactive buildings that are like rabbit holes. I know that sounds crazy, asking for more rabbit holes as a Sims player. You want to be able to do everything with your sim, but a lot of these shells in the neighborhood are just shells, you know? Like Horse Ranch, their town was so much better, and so was the cottage living town, where you can like go and click on a storefront and go shopping, or your sim will go into a rabbit hole and then come back after a few seconds and they had been to the movie theaters in, what pack is that? Growing Together. I wish that that was the standard of having not just one rabbit hole, but several in each pack. Like every single time you get a world, all of those empty shells, at least you can walk up to a shell and go inside. Your sim disappears, maybe like goes and gets a freaking smoothie at a smoothie shop, or goes and takes a pottery class. Like, I don't freaking know. Goes to a woodworking course, whatever. Something. Goes to freaking daycare. Like, that would be so perfect. But instead we have these like big old worlds that you can't do anything in, and you just like send your sim to go on a jog, and like that's the use of 50% of the space. It's ridiculous. All right, back to this build. I saw a lot of photos on Pinterest of loft style apartments that are AI generated, but I was really inspired by a couple of YouTube videos that I watched that had a really small entrance that leads out into this big open area where there's a lofted apartment. And yeah, I was like, I want that type of feeling, but in a townhouse. Obviously, since this is in Evergreen Harbor, I wanted to use a lot of items that came from the Eco Lifestyle pack. So I made sure to use windows and doors from the pack, but also the roof texture. And I love when there's little gameplay effects on these kind of build items. The roof texture that I used is an energy saving item, and it's supposed to be a type of solar panel roof. And I really love how those little tiles are, they look just so high tech. Usually when I'm building, I use a ton of debug hacks and debug items, but this fence, the only debug item that I used in this build. So it was a very simple build in that sense. I didn't do a lot of customization. Believe me, I tried. There was a couple of times where I was like, oh, this would be good, and use like the tool mod to size things down, but then I realized like it wasn't really necessary, and I deleted those things because when I'm replicating the same house multiple times, so I'm doing this one townhouse, but then I have to do it 3 more times, and I'm like, I don't want to use the tool mod to make a bunch of custom stuff 3 more times in this build when it's not necessary. And I'm not doing interior decor most of the time. When I'm doing like decorative items, that's when I'm really like customizing a bunch of stuff. However, obviously I don't need to do that. So for the sake of my sanity, I stuck with just the one debug customization, and I'm really happy that I did because the build looks amazing and everything's functioning really well. If you noticed just now, I like pulled a bunch of different doors out because I was having trouble trying to figure out what the doors are gonna look like in this little hallway area. So I wanted to have a doorway into that den, a doorway to this smaller closet, which is going to hold the laundry units, and then a closet for like clothes, like a coat closet. I love the closets that come in the game. However, there's like very limited amount of doors that come with them. And if I want to use that smaller closet, I've got one set of swatches to choose from. Obviously, there's like the larger closets that are 4 tile large, but for a small home like this, I want to use the smaller closets. And so I had to forego the functionality of the closet and just put doors there. So it's good if you have like stuff that you want to store, like the decoration box, or if you have like one of those storage boxes. I guess there's a ton of storage boxes. Actually, there's storage boxes that came with this pack, so we'll just say that's where you put your storage box to hold your bits and bobbles, your seeds and whatnot. So yeah, I guess that's fine. But usually I want to use the closets that came with the get together pack because I like the functionality of them, where you like click on it like a dresser, and it's just a little bit more put together functionality wise. I had so much trouble getting this lofted space to work, by the way, because I don't like when the floor's edge is kind of like a bluish gray. I don't know if you ever noticed that before, but yeah, so I like to have some trim on it to make it look realistic. And I'm sure you'll see what I'm saying as you watch this, but adding different build features like columns and the freeze, what is the other thing, the trims, make such a big difference architecturally on those little ledges. It really completes the build. I did struggle just a tiny bit on this kitchen setup because I wanted to have not only a huge island to make cooking easier, but also the door under the stairs that leads into the bathroom, rather than have the bathroom be only accessible through that den, just in case I was doing gameplay where I wanted to use that as a bedroom. However, like, I ended up only using the 3 tiles for the island, and so I used a middle piece and then 2 side pieces on the side, but the middle piece had a stovetop on it, and I just remembered that I did not add an oven. So I mean, if you're moving in here you're gonna need an oven. I'll update the like downloadable version on the gallery. The one problem that I have with this build is that there's only one countertop that is big enough for cooking on, so you're gonna have to clear that off if you want to cook multiple dishes in a row. That's the only problem really, but that's not really a big deal because it's like a single sim household, so most likely you're not gonna be doing a lot of cooking. I spent quite a bit of time going back and forth on the colors of the walls in this build because the shape of the roof that I have, it's like that triangle shape. I deleted the ceiling so that you will see the triangular shape of the roof inside of this build. And due to that, you're gonna see the color of the exterior paint. So when you're inside of this lofted area, you're gonna see that white tile from the outside of the building. That does not match with the stucco, I guess that's how you say it, stucco paint that I have put up there. And I just really didn't like the way that looked. So I was like, oh my god, now I gotta change the exterior of the build to make it a different color, which was a little frustrating because I liked how modern and plasticky that looked, because yeah, it kind of went with my mind of like my idea of this modern construction, ultra modern looking, townhouse. However, this like painted brick swatch also looked really good. It kind of tied more into that industrial vibe that I have going on the interior, and it just looked really, really cool. I love it. So I ended up using that on the inside and exterior of this build. Obviously, when you're having your sim move in, you can paint it to be different colors. However, that roof tile swatch is going to be the same no matter what you do, unless you change the exterior color. I think I will do a video decorating one of these townhouses, not all of them, as like a show home. And I think I'll do it with the eco lifestyle build by items. I've moved on to deciding on the lighting for this build. Next is wall sconces. And I never get to use those wall sconces because they're freaking huge. They're the size of a sim. They're like human size. So perfect spot to put those. And then I have these like little wall sconces that I was using as kind of like a night light in that upper bedroom area. And I was trying to figure out if I wanted to use that in the other areas of the build. I ended up only using that in the bedroom lofted area, which again, like, I like having all those little details in the build, so that was wonderful. Another thing I just realized, I forgot the freaking light switches, so I'm also going to be adding that in. Light switches and oven. How did I forget those things? They're like, I mean, it makes sense that I would forget because they're like such small details, but that's how you know that I'm like a stickler for the details. I need that. I need it to be realistic. So yeah, adding that to my to-do list. By the time this video gets out, it'll be done. What's one thing that your builds need to have in order to be realistic that you always put in them? For me, it's like the little details, like light switches, having maybe a space heater or vents when building is kind of old, or having like roof details like chimneys and stuff. And of course, I can't forget about the ceiling details. Things like ceiling tiles, structural beams, and even like columns. Like those things really make a difference. So those are some really big things that I love to see in a build to make it look more realistic. And now I've moved on to the most annoying but also easiest part of this build, is just duplicating the original townhouse. And so now it's complete. That it did take a while just because, some things get duplicated incorrectly or like if you move a room that's next to a room, the doorway that's combining those two rooms is going to duplicate as well twice, so you have to delete those doors. But now that that's finished, I'm working on some more details from this build, like the chimneys and fireplaces. I also wanted the end units on these townhouses to have a unique feature. Since they do have the open space next to them, they can have more windows on the sides, whereas like the middle townhouses, it doesn't make sense to put a bunch of windows to look at another brick wall. Those houses, there were some glitches that started to come into effect. For example, on this area where I have the split level, you see what I'm talking about when I say that I like to have a more realistic edge to these floors. So I add on a trim to the interior room, and that trim then creates this kind of like black almost seam on the edge of the floor to create a ledge. However, the room was glitching out, and then part of the trim just disappeared. So I figured out, you know, just like with all other technology, you turn it off, you turn it on again, it starts to work. So I deleted the ceiling and then added the ceiling back a couple of times, and it worked just randomly. So don't know what to tell you, but turn it on and off again, coming from someone who was in tech support for years. Turn it on and turn it off again, it'll work. I moved on after that to editing the chimneys, because I swear to God, like, why is it so annoying that the chimneys are never the same size as like a room? So like it's not 2 tiles, it's like under 2 tiles. But then when you size up the chimney with tool mod, then the little smoke animation does not line up with the object. So yeah, I always end up using half walls to wrap around whatever chimney I'm using to make it look like it's bigger than it is. It's little changes like these that bring the time of the build up so much. So I'll spend like 5 to maybe even 20 hours on one build, and then it's just me digging around doing little minute changes, like changing the wall height of the chimneys for freaking 5 minutes at a time, and that really adds up. And then I moved on to fixing the little details of the front gardens and switching around the lighting a bit. There's something about landscaping that I don't know why, but some days I'm really, really good at landscaping. Other days I'm like, wow, what the fuck? When did I get so bad? I don't even know what to do. How am I even supposed to make this look good? Landscaping is such a like hit or miss with me. I swear, I don't know how I do it sometimes. Sometimes I make landscaping that's amazing, like chef's kiss, wonderful. And then my other landscaping is just like, you tried. But I feel like this landscaping that I did, I knew that I was not going to be able to perform at peak. So I just did like something really minimal. And even then I was struggling. I was thinking about it way too much. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I should use planters. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And that's like, I've got literally like 5 squares. Why am I thinking so hard about it? But you know, it's those types of things, like I said, that bring the time of the build up. And it's the same with this outdoor flooring tile that I have. I didn't want to leave it as that like brown dirt. Instead, I wanted to have some pavement, because I mean, obviously the surrounding area is pavement, so it wouldn't make sense not to be. I also considered doing like a little walkway within like green, like the eco lifestyle grass, but I don't know. I feel like it looks good with the stone and either the really industrial, like pre-revitalization Evergreen Harbor, and afterwards when everything changes, the stone tile still looks good. Versus if I had it like the greenery, then I would probably want to like switch it when the world changes. Now I've moved on to separating out the residential rental units. This process was again quite annoying, but it did give me like a chance to take a closer look at my build and see where like maybe something is missing from when I duplicated the townhouses. And it also got me thinking about the price of this. And that's one thing I was so focused on. It was like one of the things that my goals for this build was to have it be super affordable, so you still have money left over to buy furniture once you get this townhouse. Also, this had just like a random glitch where the fourth unit, it was showing us 2 rooms when none of the other units did that. I don't know if I did something wrong or if the game was glitching, but yeah, it was not like, something wasn't right, and I was like, I need to get this right because I want to make sure that the residential rental works properly. So I ended up having to redo that kitchen area, which was, you know, annoying. But I tried several things before finally giving in and deleting that kitchen area and then recreating it, like adding a wall, then removing the wall to see if the glitch would stop, but it just, nothing worked except for deleting that entire little room in the kitchen. So that took a little bit of time. I'm noticing that the game is less glitchy than before after they did some performance updates recently. So I am pretty satisfied with The Sims right now. I haven't been buying the recent packs because, you know, too many glitches. It's just not worth it. But I'm starting to feel like it might be worth it soon. I noticed that this hallway, the doorway that I had put in didn't really line up with the end of the hallway, and it would be cheaper if I removed the door and just left it as a hallway. And also, I'm a lover of fireplaces, and there's this fireplace buff that you get when your fireplace is running in the room. And so I've realized that if I remove that doorway and wall, then that buff would also extend to the hall. I checked, and that change actually made the rent $2 cheaper. So I'm saving your some money, okay? For the final touch, I added lot traits to this build. So each townhouse has the lot trait of chef's kitchen, natural light, and sunny aspect. Obviously, there's a ton of huge windows in this build, so I needed to make sure that we got some sunny aspect vibes from all those windows, and natural light, of course. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this build with me, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.